Welcome everyone to the Nosebleeds. Oh, there he goes again.
It's
I
four
don't
for
know why
four.
that bothers me so much. You always do these little things, Dominic, and I see him so many times that I'm like, oh my god, can he stop?
He's
It's
getting
just like
sick of me,
the
everyone.
it's not just you though. It's just something ingrained in me. It's like the lo-fi music when
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I was a proponent of it, and then 2 weeks later I was like, Dominic, I've heard this damn clacking on this. Uh,
So basically,
Lo-fi.
Noah is looking for a new co-host. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. But if it breeds, it bleeds. The nose specifically. Thank you
Yes.
for joining us. The show by below average betters for below average betters. But really, Dominic, we can probably change that little tagline there because
Damn right.
UFC Vegas 47 was very kind to your Joes.
Let's get
We had a
right
really
into
good
it.
week. A really good week.
There it is. Bear with me.
So these are the results that we had, and boy, do I wish I could sit here and just talk about all the positives of the week. But Dominic, before I even ask you, man, just if you look at this, we last week went positive 4 units, people. I
It
mean,
was.
what a
We
bounce
needed
back.
it. We needed it. Yeah.
But just imagine if I hadn't put 2 units down on that parlay, Dominic, we would have been at 6 or 5, I guess, or no,
Yes, but still.
6. But the thing is, this parlay, man, Shavkat Rakhmonov wins.
Yes.
Alexis Davis, Julia Stoliarenko go to a decision. But this
Yes.
parlay was dead on arrival. This
First fight of the night.
parlay was dead less than 2 minutes into the first round of the first fight. And
Oh,
man, I feel for Dennis Bondar here because this was the guy making a UFC debut who it's kind of had a little bit of anticipation for it. He looked
yeah.
really good regionally, but it took him a while to make his debut. He's just had injury issues and stuff. And then just over a minute into his fight, him and Malcolm Gordon kind of, you know, get one of those like strongman takedowns where they like kind of have their arms around each other's
Mm,
necks and just try to use their strength, the power over one another. And then Bondar's arm just like snapped, basically. I mean, it was
yes.
broken, terrible looking break. Who knows? Malcolm Gordon kind of looked really good in that first minute, so he might have got the win anyways. But man, it's a tough way to lose that parlay. We were looking like we were gonna have some pretty good. That would have been just sick to.
Oh, to go perfect. It's gonna
Yeah,
happen eventually.
yeah. But I did bounce back later on. Phil Rowe by KO was a very nice one, especially considering he was losing that because that happened in the second round. He lost the first round, I believe, of that fight. Like was getting
Hmm.
taken down, and I was like, oh no, this is what I said couldn't happen.
Right.
And sure enough, right when I kind of felt like I was losing hope is when he got back up and he just nailed a
Dude.
1-2, put
It's that
Jason
10-inch
Witt
reach
down.
advantage he had, man. It was crazy.
Whew. And honestly, me and Dominic teaming up on the main event to go to distance, I mean,
Big time.
that was like stealing money right there. I mean, come on. All y'all thought that serial killer shit that Strickland been preaching was for real. Yeah,
Yikers.
but that's a Sean Strickland fight, man, and we know how
It
good,
was.
how durable Jack Hermanson can be.
Yeah.
So it just seemed like a very smart play, and I'm glad that we both were on the same page there. But Dominic, I kind of went over all my plays, but I'll let you take a second to go over yours or just anything else that kind of stuck out to you.
Well, just collectively as a unit, again, no congratulations on the big bounce back week. We needed it after a rough UFC 270. No going head to head with one another. We're just straight up winning here. And, obviously, Shavkat Rakhmonov, he got you the win in the parlay. Unfortunately, that didn't hit. But not only did he get the win, he got the finish, Noah. He's 15-0, 15 wins, 15 finishes. The guy's an
And
absolute beast.
ranked number 15 now as of
That's
today.
right. Yes. So, absolute stud at plus money for him to get a finish, considering he's never went the distance. Come on, people. You'd want to talk about stealing money. There you go right there. So, Shavkat Rakhmonov, again, he was the biggest standout on the card to me, the biggest standout of the year so far for me. Definitely what I had to point out here.
Yeah, and also, I mean, good call on that Ultimate Fighter,
Yeah,
the real finale, if you will,
it's
between
true.
Brian Battle and Trayshawn Gore. I wasn't confident in that one, if I'm being honest for you. I was like, for one, I was kind of siding with Trayshawn Gore.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if he's going to win this, I think it's going to be the
He's
power.
got the power. Yep.
But Trayshawn Gore he fought a lot. I saw a lot of comparisons to like Tyron Woodley at the end of
Hmm.
his career. And that was kind of the case. The shots that he threw hurt Battle bad. But
Yes.
Battle was just super active. So, like, even if Gore had the best moments of each round, he never was able to put enough together to
Yeah.
get it really. I don't know if he got one round maybe, but Brian Battle clearly won, but it did go to distance. So
Hmm.
ended up being a smart play. Dominic's had a couple of those. I want to give you credit. A couple of those where
Oh.
you feel like a finish is going to, like, at least for me, and
Hmm.
I always like, I'll feel like a finish is going to happen when you bet on that distance, and the fight will look like a finish is going to happen, but then it
Yeah.
somehow carries to a decision. So,
Well, no, we'll find out later if I can hit one more time.
yeah, that does put us at plus 2.77 units for the year.
Yep.
So it was definitely a bounce back that was needed. And we'll see if we can keep that positive momentum going, Dominic. So I
Amen.
think now we move into UFC 271. Starts with the main event, Moneyline.
Here we go.
What a fight to talk about here. The rematch, 3 years in the making. Israel Adesanya. This time the roles are flipped. He's the champion, the middleweight champion, looking to defend against Robert Whittaker. Fun fact, Dominic, Robert Whittaker, since that loss, has never lost his number one contender spot. He has
Yeah.
remained number one from the day he lost that title.
And that was what, October of 2018? That's been
I think it was
3 years ago?
Wasn't
Or
it October
2019?
2019? Yes.
2019,
So two and
yeah.
a half years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
But this feels like an overdue rematch, but here we are. And
Hmm.
the odds definitely playing into the first fight, I think, a lot here because
Very much.
Adesanya is a minus 280 and nearly 3-1 favorite. While Robert Whittaker plus 225, I think the odds makers staggered these pretty good to where
Yeah, that's true.
Whittaker doesn't feel like a huge underdog in his odds, but then Adesanya feels like a huge favorite. So
Yeah.
it's kind of in that sweet spot there. But I'm curious, Dominic, your takeaways from knowing these odds right now and sort of how you perceive the fight.
Yeah, man. I mean, I said off recording that was like, I was surprised, but then I'm like, I'm not surprised because, you look at that first fight, and yes, it was a long time ago. They both have fought numerous times since then. Robert Whittaker's won 3 in a row. But the way in which Izzy won that fight and just dominated that fight from start to finish, gets the brutal knockout early on in that second round, almost finished Rob in the first round of that fight. So, I think that's definitely coming into play here. And Izzy, at the end of the day, has looked damn near untouchable at 185 pounds. This has nothing to do with that trip up to 205 against Jan Blachowicz.
It's true.
This is purely based on his middleweight skill set, and he's looked unbeatable. So, at minus 280, almost 3-1 favorite is crazy. But when you're a dominant champion, I mean, he's got 3 title defenses. I think it's safe to say he's reached that kind of, notch in his career right now. It's a big fight, man, for him to continue building that legacy, to beat a former champion a second time. And for Robert Whittaker, like I said, he's on that 3-fight win streak. So, as you said, they kind of staggered those odds with it being a little bit more toward Rob on the plus money side. So, it's definitely interesting, but it does make sense. I'm not advocating for either line to be moved. I think it's good.
I wonder if this fight had happened in place of the Marvin Vettori rematch in the summer, coming off that loss to Jan Blachowicz, I wonder how much different these odds would be. Because even though Adesanya nearly perfect against Marvin Vettori,
Yeah.
2021 just, and he's even admitted as such this week, felt like a sort of, not a step backwards, but it felt like just a linear step in Adesanya's legacy, career. The performances he put on in 2020 and even before that, you look at that journey he went on, the Anderson Silva fight, 2019,
Yes.
the Anderson Silva fight, the Kelvin Gastelum fight, and then the Robert Whittaker performance. Then in 2020 follows that up, Yoel Romero fight. I know,
The
but
shit
then
sandwich.
finishes the year with the Paulo Costa win that
Yes.
made everybody forget about that Yoel Romero fight. And then he went up to light heavyweight, and I think most thought that he was going to really take that next step, champ status, be
Yeah.
that guy, one of the all-time greats. But then he lost and lost convincingly, yes, to a good
Mm-hmm.
champion in Jan Blachowicz, but it didn't necessarily. It felt like a. It's hard to call it a step back because again, he went up, he tried the damn thing, but it was definitely it felt like that year, even with the bounce back in Marvin Vettori, like a linear step, just a didn't really boost his momentum or
Yeah.
his legacy, but he just kind of remained in the place he is.
Well, and I
And
think it also kind of people thought for a second, oh, here's some vulnerability. You just got to take him down. I think that kind of played a role as well until we saw that get corrected.
yeah, so it's pretty clear that nobody at 185 pounds is going to be able to have the kind of advantage that Jan Blachowicz had
Exactly.
in getting Adesanya to the ground, that strength, that power. Nobody at 185 pounds just is able to carry the amount of weight Jan Blachowicz was carrying at
Right.
205 pounds. Now, what I'll say here, and I know we try to tailor this discussion to the betting odds, for Robert Whittaker, he looks much improved coming off the heels of that first fight. I mean, we were saying Whittaker 2.0 and stuff with
Yep.
his wins over Jared Cannonier and Darren Till, and then Kelvin Gastelum. He looked very good, even though
That was
Kelvin kind of
yeah.
stepped up late. Robert Whittaker looks very good, and he said as much. This time out, I'm going to fight like an MMA fighter. He
Hmm.
said he felt like the first fight, whether it was because the moment was too big or he got in his head or whatever, he kind of just went at him like he wanted to take his head off, like a brawler.
Right.
Completely played into Izzy's hand. I expect a much better Robert Whittaker here, but is a much better Robert Whittaker enough to beat Israel Adesanya, or is Whittaker just cursed to be the Rich Franklin to
Oh.
Izzy's
Oh
Anderson
no.
Silva?
Yeah, that's something you don't want to be. I don't know. It's weird, man, because he has looked so damn good, but is he at middleweight? Is just at a different level. He's shown it time and time again. It's going to be a hell of a fight. I can't wait to even talk about it later on in the show.
Yeah, and we will be talking about this more on the bet slip
Yeah.
portion, but I do think that there is that plus 225 is definitely like you kind of look at it for a second, if you really think hard about it.
You almost want to sprinkle a little
Yeah,
something.
just because again he does look much improved, and
Yeah.
if he comes in with a much better game plan, who knows what happens? It's hard to go against a champ though. That's really what
is.
it comes down to because he's already done it once, and pretty much every time out there at middleweight, he looks flawless, and
Yeah.
that's kind of why he's as big of a favorite as he is.
Exactly, man.
Let's move on to the pick and fight of the week, Dominic. This is the fight with the closest odds as it stands today, and we
That's
just kind
right.
of go, so basically to pick them. What two guys that people basically evaluate or the odds makers evaluate as having equal opportunity to win this fight. AJ Dobson making his UFC debut, coming off the heels of an emphatic Contender Series debut, going up against Jacob Malkoun, the training partner of Robert Whittaker, making his third appearance in the UFC. So, again, pretty much a pick 'em. Minus 115 for Dobson, minus 105 for Malkoun. Is there any surprise to the odds, Dominic? Now, Malkoun, a tale of two cities with his two
Yeah.
performances. He made his debut, Fight Island, UFC 254, against Phil Halls, who knocked him out in 16 seconds.
Yes.
Amazing performance. I mean,
Yeah.
wow. But then he gets matched up with Abdul Razak Al Hassan, another just
Killer.
firecracker with straight missiles for hands.
Yes.
And he had a really good bounce back. He grappled him for 3 rounds. Wasn't the most exciting fight, but one that he fought a very smart fight.
Did what he had to do. Yeah.
Got to the judges, and Hassan just looked lost at times in there.
Yeah, it was dominant. Yeah.
So here we are. AJ Dobson on the Contender Series got a second round submission. But really, he's not like, I mean, he does have some really good wrestling, but he's got power in his hands as well. I mean, you look at some of the finishes he was having on the regional circuit. This guy was knocking people out in the first round. I mean, actually, now that I come to think of it, I don't know if before, I could be wrong on this. I might pull this up after I give it to you. I don't know if Dobson's ever, outside of his contender series fight, went out of the first round, Dominic. So when you
Yeah.
kind of look at that and take everything into account, do you like the odds so far? Are you surprised about them? And sort of how do you evaluate this matchup?
Well, no, I just want to reiterate that you are in fact correct. Before that contender series fight, AJ did have 5 fights, 5 finishes, 5 in the first round. So you were right there. I mean, he's undefeated. He's 6-0. He looked great on the contender series. And really, I just think this fight is awesome. Therefore, making the pick'em even more satisfying to look at on the betting odds here because they both have 6 fights. Jake's is 5-1 in his own right, 1-1 in the UFC, as Noah alluded to. Now he's only finished 2 out of 5, so as Noah said, he implemented a game plan that was a 3-round kind of just bounce back, right? That's what he kind of wanted against Al Hassan.
Played it
That's what he
safe.
got.
Played it safe a
Yes.
little bit.
Yeah. But in this one too, AJ's going to be the bigger guy. Got a 4-inch height advantage, a 3-inch reach advantage. He is 30 years old, so he's kind of right there in those prime years. Jacob's still 26, so fresher to the game. But I think these are just 2 well-rounded athletes here, Noah. Newbies to the UFC, if you will, and I think it's going to be a barn burner of a fight. Either way it goes, I mean, it could lean toward uneventful depending on what kind of version we see of Malkoun. But if AJ just comes out, guns ablazing, Malkoun may not have a choice but to fire back. So I think this is a great matchup, and it's a great way to kick off the card. Is this like one of the first 2 fights of the night? So I love everything about it.
I think that these odds, the reason why they're so close is because really these guys have very small resumes right now.
Yep,
Dobson's
exactly.
5-0, Malkoun's 5-1. Malkoun made his debut in the UFC with only 4 professional fights.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of, we've seen more of Jacob Malkoun on a UFC stage, UFC
Right.
caliber opponents. But even then, it doesn't really answer the question about how good is he, because the Al Hassan fight was a very smart performance, and it kind of shows, okay, I see why Robert Whittaker and this guy are like training, very high IQ performance, but
Yeah.
didn't necessarily put a lot of damage in there, didn't necessarily show a lot outside of the ability to take down Al Hassan, who's kind of struggled ever since coming back from his long layoff. But Dobson, I mean, looked fantastic on the Contender Series, has looked fantastic before the Contender Series, but
Yep.
it's a UFC debut. So we know that even the step up from going from Contender Series to the UFC is pretty
It's
big
elite.
sometimes,
Yes.
It's
Yes.
hard to tell. Like sometimes guys look fantastic on the Contender, they come to the UFC and they kind of flame out. And vice versa. Guys have lost on the Contender
Yeah.
and then they have really good runs. I really like AJ Dobson. I like his potential, but I also think Jacob Malkoun has potential. So this is a really good matchup, good matchmaking, and I think the odds kind of illustrate that right now.
And don't forget Noah. OH. I
100%, 100%. Let's get into our dog of the week. This is just the guy on the money line who is an underdog right now. Who do we like best? Dominic, my pick, Mana Martinez. Plus 235. Going a little out, straying a little bit away from the house, I'm like that dog that sits on the porch, and then I start to go away from the porch a little bit, and you're like, whoa, come on back now.
Yeah.
Come on back now.
Hey,
But I
let us
got to
know.
do it. I got to do it because I think this fight's going to be fireworks. I really do. Mana Martinez, Ronnie Lawrence. I think we're in for a highly skilled, highly durable fight. Guys that are going to take a lot of punishment, give a lot of punishment. But Mana Martinez, his ability to finish fights should not be understated, even if it wasn't at a UFC level, which is, again, the question. This man lost his contender fight, and his UFC debut was a split decision win. So, has yet to show that same ability he did at, I think it was Cage Fury is where he was fighting before this. But Ronnie Lawrence, while I think we've seen that durability showcased quite a bit,
Yeah.
and really just that dog. That's what you were
Mm-hmm.
saying before the fight. Like he's just a dog,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of decisions. So maybe that makes him better equipped if this fight does go further. But I like Mana Martinez a lot. I think he's 25 years old. He's got a lot of potential. And this feels like the kind of performance that could be his sort of moment to shine. And
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that this fight is closer than the odds. That's really why the
Yeah.
money's there. Because
Yeah.
I think the 2-1 underdog is a bit steep for Mana Martinez. I get it. UFC, well, his second fight in UFC, Ronnie Lawrence has been around a little bit longer, but I I, I wouldn't sit here and feel that confident in Ronnie Lawrence personally. You might pick him to win, but to feel confident enough to where you feel like he wins double the times that Mana Martinez wins if they fight 10, 20 times, I don't know if I
Yeah.
would go that far.
Yeah, I like that, man. And for me, I had to do it. I've talked about him time and time again. I've been riding with him since day one of this
You
win
really
streak. I
have.
had to go with Derek Brunson. He's at plus 145 right now, to Jared Cannonier's minus 165 favorite. And I just think, this 5-fight win streak, he's really dominated all 5 of those wins, man. He's gotten some finishes in there, Derek Brunson, but he's gotten some, 5-round and even 3-round decisions as well. So he's shown a little bit of everything. The only worry I have is that he's always shown a vulnerability on the feet. It's
Mm-hmm.
always been there. We've seen him get knocked out. We've seen him be wobbled in fights that he wins. And Jared Cannonier does have that equalizer. But if Brunson can kind of just stay on the outside and eventually get those takedowns, which I think could be there, I think he can coast, not coast. That sounds wrong, but you get what I'm saying. I think he can get his way to a 3-round decision victory. I almost feel that being 3 rounds, it almost leans more toward Brunson's favor just because he is that wrestler. So he doesn't have to go as long, doesn't have to grind as hard. And again, Cannonier is he's always been weird to me when I watch him fight. Like, don't get me wrong, he's great. And he's 4-1 at middleweight. He's fought in 3 weight classes, but he's been great at middleweight. But he doesn't have like that one skill set that just makes me go, oh man, title contender, future champion. He just has that power, but nothing too insane in terms of his like technical abilities. But Brunson has that grappling. He has that one go-to factor that you can look at and say, this is his method to victory to win this fight. And I think, at plus 145, with all this momentum that Brunson has, it's his last hoorah. He said, this one and 2 more after that, and I'm out of here no matter what happens. I think there's a lot of value there in Derek Brunson this weekend.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say I like it. I think
Fair
if
enough.
that, I think there's a reason for that because we're
We'll
into
see why.
the below average bet slip, and
Oh,
Dominic's forcing me to carry the load this week, guys.
hey,
I shouldn't
sorry.
say he's forcing me, but no, it's I there was a lot of fights on this card. There's 15. There's a lot of opportunity on here.
Yeah.
And, I just personally, I had a few that I just felt really confident in. Dominic might end up being the smarter guy here. He's
Ah,
keeping his cards a little closer to the chest. He's like, you know what? I'm only going to dabble a little bit.
yeah. Just get my toes wet.
All right. So let's start with our parlays because we each have one. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I am in total have 4 plays. You have 2,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
So let's start with our parlays. Let's get them out there, Dominic. Each 3 legs. What are the 3 legs of your parlay?
All right, no. So mine is 3-leg money line parlay at final odds. We're plus 118. So we're going 2 from the prelims. We got Carlos Alberg against Fabio Charant. I've got Casey O'Neill against Roxanne Modafferi. And the third and final leg, we got Kyler Phillips there to kick off the main card. He's actually a humongous favorite. I was really debating with Noah off recording what I wanted to do because I wanted Kyler in some way or fashion this week. And I think he's going to just have a big bounce back. I think he's going to look really good. That's a humongous favorite with him being a minus 410. But, Rojo has shown vulnerability, hence the big time favorite here for Kyler Phillips. Casey O'Neill makes me nervous because she's fighting Roxanne Modafferi, a seasoned veteran to say the least. But we've been so high on Casey since she started. She's 3-0 with 3 finishes in the UFC. I'm not necessarily saying she's going to get a finish, but I think she does get the biggest win of her career here to really start catapulting herself in 2022. And then Carlos Alberg and Fabio Charant. It's an interesting fight. I think it could be exciting. I think it could be boring potentially. But Alberg is just a big dude. He's got the height advantage. He's got the reach advantage. He's got the power. Charant's lost 2 in a row, both via first round stoppage. So I just think Alberg's going to bounce back after kind of his last fight against Kennedy and Chokwu. I think it's relatively accurate there on the pronunciation.
Chukwu.
There we go. He looked great early on, gassed, and then got knocked out. I think, and even Noah alluded to off recording, he might kind of simmer down a little, and he's going to hint on it as well. But I do think ultimately he gets the win there. So 3 legs plus 118.
Mine's 3 legs, all money line as well. And it's 2 main card fights, 1 on the prelims. Casey O'Neill is also on my parlay, Dominic. So Roxanne could be playing double buster.
Big time. Yeah.
Jared Cannonier is actually on mine. So kind of going against your underdog pick. I personally think that there's a lot of value in the fact that Cannonier fought at heavyweight, then at light heavyweight, and now he's at middleweight. And he's going up against someone who depends on their grappling strength. Cannonier, I think, is the stronger fighter. Just personally, he fought at bigger weight classes.
Yeah.
Yes, he's cutting down, but he hasn't shown really any problem to cut down. And I think the power in his hands, while you're kind of right in the sense of like, yes, he does have a lot of power, but it's when you watch a stand up, it's kind of hard to judge sometimes. You just you don't really get it's hard to really get an idea of kind of.
It's weird.
It's like, okay, he can, he has good power, but like, I've never really seen him just one punch KO somebody. So like, I will say in the Robert Whittaker fight, again, he kind of got beat up for the majority of the 3 rounds, but then had kind of a big moment in round 3 where he staggered Robert Whittaker, but couldn't get the finish. Hurt him multiple times. So we'll hear with Brunson. Brunson has a worse chin than Robert Whittaker.
True.
But he does have that wrestling ability, that grappling ability. To me, I'm just, again, depending on Cannonier to keep himself off his back and use his strength to avoid really being dragged down, clinched up for long periods, and hopefully staying on the outside.
Of course.
And the last leg, Israel Adesanya. I struggled with this one. Part of me kind of wanted to go with like a Jeremiah Wells or someone like that early on. But I look at this fight with Robert Whittaker, and I really don't see where Robert Whittaker wins this fight. Don't get me wrong, he's a complete mixed martial artist. Israel Adesanya, while being one of the most fantastic strikers we've ever seen, isn't necessarily a complete product. He's like very specialized.
Yes. But
he is so good at staying away from where his opponents want to take that fight to the ground. Yes, Jan Blachowicz had success, but again, 20 pounds heavier. Izzy didn't even weigh in at 205 pounds for that fight.
Yeah.
Robert Whittaker, while being more of the complete mixed martial artist, is also not just some, he's not some like dynamic wrestler or dominant wrestler. He's actually, funny enough, I think Whittaker has better takedown defense than Izzy does. Whittaker is like the best non-wrestler as far as defensively speaking in the UFC. I mean, the guy has like the best takedown defense that you can find.
Yeah.
But now he's going to have to kind of play it offensively if he wants to have a chance here. And I just think if this fight stays standing, I don't think it goes as swift or as one-sided as the first fight. Izzy probably will have to at least – he won't be able to get bored like he did in the second Marvin Vettori fight, like he said this week. But in my opinion, he's got the skill set to get it done again, and who knows what's next. But all 3 of those together, all 3 big favorites if you go individually, but you put them together in a parlay plus 175. I like my chances.
Yeah, no, if I'm not mistaken, neither of us have hit a parlay yet so far through the nosebleeds. So
We have
come
not.
on, one of us has got to hit one this week. Damn
I
it.
believe we've had 3 total so far, and I think
Yes,
all 3 of them have
we got
hit
two
2
out of
of
three
3.
legs. Yep, very true.
It's always that third one, man. It's always that
Yep.
third one. I will mention, just because we just talked about him, I also am putting 2 units. I'm doubling down. I did it on the parlay last week. That was a mistake. But I feel confident right now. I'm putting it on AJ Dobson to get the win over Jacob Malkoun at minus 115. Again, Malkoun is good. Like, I think this is a great starting point for AJ Dobson
Yep.
because, truthfully, while AJ Dobson may be a bit raw, he may, maybe he does need to work on certain parts of his skill set. The intangibles are there. The finishing ability is there. And he does show quite a high fight IQ when I saw from him on the Contender Series. I think that if he kind of bull rushes Malkoun early, you saw when Phil Halls did that, Malkoun looked like he was staring at ghosts. I mean,
Yes.
he looked lost, kept his chin up high, just tried to grab him in for a clinch, and Halls just started landing haymakers.
Yeah, that doesn't
on
work
the
with
chin.
Phil Halls. Yeah.
So AJ Dobson's a brute, though, man, and he trains with guys like Mark Coleman was in his corner, so
Yeah.
he's gonna have a great wrestling base, and he shows a lot of power on the feet. I don't think it's as simple as Malkoun just taking this fight to the ground
Yeah.
like he did with
Yeah.
Adesanya. So I look at Dobson as the more complete fighter right now. Malkoun could prove that wrong because we haven't really seen his full skill set either. But I love the potential of Dobson. I liked him on the Contender Series. I'm going to ride with him here. Double units, minus 115 for AJ Dobson.
I love that, Noah. So I guess I just go with my second, then you finish with your last two.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done great on these so far through the year. So damn it, I'm gonna ride it one more time. We kind of hinted at it earlier in the main event money line. Adesanya versus Whittaker to go the distance. Noah, it's sitting there at minus 120, so it's not plus, but it's almost even. So I'll take it. I've told you this so many times already this year. Ever since 2022 kicked off, I've had this just nudging in my gut, this feeling that we're gonna see this 5-round technical back and forth battle between Whittaker and Adesanya here in the rematch. I don't know why that is, but that's just what that's what I'm feeling. I think potentially at the end of 2022 we could be talking about this fight at the Joey's. I'm just really excited for this rematch. Adesanya, 4 out of his 6 title fights have went the distance, win or lose, and Whittaker, his last 5 wins have all been via decision, including the 3-fight win streak that he's on. So I just think this time around, Whittaker's not going to bull rush in like he did in that first fight. I don't think he's going to slip up because I think he now knows just how dangerous of a counter striker Israel Adesanya is. I mean, you can't play into his game, and it's going to be ugly for you if you do. So I think it's going to be tit for tat, back and forth. I don't know who's going to win this fight. I couldn't go with a winner, but I could go the distance at minus 120, my friend.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, even though I didn't put it on my bet slip. That's where I'm leaning as a decision, even though I think I feel confident enough in Adesanya, but it could be a really good fight for sure. Now it's time for me to talk about my boy, Andrei Arlovsky by decision.
We knew it was coming.
This is the one I feel the most confident in, I think. Plus 130. I love those odds. Andrei Arlovsky, I'm pretty sure, has not finished the fight in a win since 2015, I want to say.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Him and Travis Brown, when they had that wild, one of the best one-round fights of all time.
Yeah.
That's the last time he finished the fight. But the way he's getting wins, and this is a credit to his adaptability, is he's using his fight IQ. He's using his veteran experience. He's getting matched up with a lot of young hot shots, a lot of good athletes. And Jared Vandura doesn't really fit that bill perfectly like a lot of these guys he's been fighting have. Vandura's 1-2 in the UFC. His only win was against the guy who is the only heavyweight to ever miss weight, Justin Tafa. So I'm not saying that as like a disrespect, but I mean, it shows the kind of caliber we're dealing with here. And Vandura hasn't been all that impressive, if I'm being honest. Yeah, he had a Contender Series win, but it just hasn't really done it for me. He's just been a low-level heavyweight. He's been kind of a guy to fill out the roster.
Right.
Andrei Arlovsky is a former champion who is still fighting at a decently high level.
He's evolved so much with the times,
And Vandura really hasn't been like this high finisher in the UFC either. He's been in the fight with Justin Tafa was great. Bloody. That's the one where Vandura had a crazy gash on his forehead, I think. Nasty stuff. So I don't see Arlovsky finishing this fight. But really, I don't see Vandura doing it either. And because of that, I think it goes to a decision either way. But I'm going to side with the veteran IQ, the guy with more experience, the guy who's been there, done that, and he's been in that moment going to a decision with a much younger guy, literally time after time at this point. Andrei Arlovsky via decision at plus 130. Book it.
And Noah, if he wins this one, that'll be 3 wins in a row for the Pitbull, man. I'm just saying.
He's
title shot 2023, right?
Approaching, I think that's what I said, approaching top 15. Yep. Will he get the Shavkat treatment with the win? Get put top 15 on Tuesday? I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised.
The last one, though, Dominic had one of these guys on his. Carlos Ulberg and Fabio Cherant. I don't feel confident enough in a winner on this one.
Yeah.
Even though, again, Ulberg kind of a big favorite. Like, you might side with him. But I do feel confident this fight will go over 1.5 rounds at plus 120. Yes, these two guys are very powerful, very good athletes, but both have struggled so far in the UFC. Mostly Cherant 0-2, but Ulberg had what started as a great debut.
Yeah.
And then turned into a bit of a nightmare, a bit of a dud, a bit of a pie on the face moment where he kind of gassed out after the first round, and then Kennedy Nzechukwu came back and had one of the best come-from-behind wins of the whole year. Because of that, you got Cherant, who's essentially fighting for his UFC career probably. And then you got Ulberg, who is really in need of a bounce back and also recognizes that he gassed out basically after a round in his last fight. I think you're going to see a lot of tentativeness here. And I'm not saying it'll last the whole fight, but I don't see either of these guys just shooting out, trying to get an early finish, because there's the fear of getting countered, getting taken down or something like that, and then you're, getting dominated for a whole run. I think both these guys might be feeling a little bit of the heat of the moment, at least early on, and because of that, I think it goes over the halfway point of the fight. Maybe you get a late finish, maybe you don't, but like both these guys, so I kind of just want a good fight for them because I'd like to see them both carry on in the UFC, but
we just hope both teams have fun, right?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But again, that's plus 120. And that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Nosebleeds.
Come on now. Come on.
But thanks again for joining us. Make sure to check out tomorrow our weekend preview for UFC 271. We're going to be going over a lot of the fights we talked about here, more of the X's and O's, the stories going into storylines. And other fights that we didn't even discuss here are going to be on there. So make sure to check that out. But until then, Dominic, tell the good people where they can find you on social media.
You can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, at Diesely14. More importantly, go follow, go engage, go interact with us, with the show, on Twitter, on Instagram, at BAJ_MMA podcast.
As for me, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, at B.
There it is.
I haven't done my outro in so long.
Yeah, you've been putting it on me in the podcast.
You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at ntbaker_. If you go to the link in my bio, there will be a link tree, which presents you a list of links to all the platforms the podcast is on, along with social media platforms. So that includes,
but is not limited to,
kind of is, the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, and Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. It's all on there. And there's a couple links for today's sponsor, Anchor, the podcast sponsor.
The podcast,
Anchor.
yes, right.
First, leaving a voice message. If you'd like to let us know that your plays next week, make sure to leave that down. You can have up to 60 seconds. Let us know what plays you'll be making. Let us know what plays you have for this weekend. We'll
Mm-hmm.
make sure to include it on our next episode in our recap portion.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have any questions about maybe what play, what's our process, or what plays do we like to make more than any, what our favorite bets are to make, anything like that, you can leave that up to 60 seconds. And there's a link on there if you want to become a supporter of the podcast. Appreciate any and all support. 100 subscribers. We're hot shit. That's it. We're out. And we'll see y'all on the next one.